Hi, everyone. This is Tammy Wrobbel, an inclusion specialist with Early Choices. I'm so pleased to introduce you to a friend of mine. We're going to spend some time now talking about an EcoMap. I'm pleased to introduce you to Maria Castanes. She's an associate director at the Early Intervention Training Program in Urbana-Champaign. Maria was first introduced to the field of early intervention when she graduated from college, and she got a job in a specialized school in Montreal, Canada. She worked as an instructor, learning early on that she was able to obtain better results when she worked closely with parents to share strategies. When she moved to Chicago, Maria got a job as a service coordinator. Maria obtained a bachelor's degree in psychology from Concordia University in Montreal, Canada. She went on to receive her master's degree in psychology from McGill University in Montreal, Canada. Maria has many years of experience as a lead service coordinator full-time at a Child and Family Connections, where she trains new service coordinators. And now we get to have Maria teach us all kinds of new, lovely things to help benefit children and families.
Thank you, Tammy. That was such a nice introduction. I am honored to be here today to talk about really one of my favorite things, really the reason behind all the work that we do in early intervention and early childhood, and in the future, it really is all about families. So I'm really so excited to introduce something called the EcoMap, and we're going to go into some detail about it. But I want to start off by saying is that teams are interested in the entire family, not just the child that is attending the early childhood program or that is in early intervention. We know that children live in families, and one of the key ingredients is really to establish this friendly, interested relationship. And I'm going to go even further to say really a partnership with the family. So the family and the service provider are really working together as partners, really exchanging information. It is really this exchange of information. So we start that by really finding out about the family ecology. When we think about the family ecology, it has a purpose. We want to determine what supports that you already have and who might be able to help the goals that you set. As families, remember, you're the ones that are driving the IEP, the IFSP. You're really driving all services based on the priorities that you identify. So we really want to see already naturally what supports are already there, because we never want to reinvent the wheel, but we really want to support those supports to support you, really strengthening those supports. I usually will say, we're going to ask some questions and we're going to draw a picture and really plot out the support system and the family. We call that an EcoMap. We also make sure that we say this: if there's anything you don't want to say, don't say it. We really want families to be comfortable in what they're sharing. And just because we ask the question, it doesn't mean it has to be answered. It's always up to the family to decide what needs to be shared and maybe what needs to be left out. And we start off by really drawing the picture of the home. And in this instance, it's a square in the middle of a sheet. We always take a blank sheet and we ask the family, who lives in the home with your child and you? And everyone that lives in the family is listed in that main box. So we include everyone in the family, and we also include pets into that little box. And we start expanding out the EcoMap and thinking about those informal supports. It's people that are living with the child. We want to think about the mother's family. We want to think about the father's family, any neighbors and family friends. And then we break it down even further. We go into the mother's friends and the father's friends. Sometimes as parents, you may have separate friends. I know my husband and I have my very good high school girlfriends, and my husband has his high school friends, and those are just kind of our separate friends. But we include them in that because those have an impact. Then we also go into something that Dr. Robin McWilliam likes to call intermediate support. And those are supports that are in your life. They're not paid to be in your life, but they're a little bit more formal. So that would be places of worship, any play groups, gym activities. We include work friends, any recreational activities that you might engage in. The very last thing that we ask about, and this goes at the bottom of the EcoMaps, is the formal supports. And I really like to define the formal supports as the people that are paid to be in your life. So formal supports can include things such as doctors, teachers, therapists, insurance companies. It could be financial agencies. You can see that there's a lot more to include in the informal supports. And for every EcoMap, I want to start off by saying is that we want to really support those informal supports, because those supports are going to be there way after early childhood, early intervention, and any other paid system. They're going to be there for sometimes a lifetime, and we want to always make sure we're strengthening those supports. So when I think about the EcoMap, I always like to make sure the EcoMap is really top heavy, really full of those informal supports, because those are the day-to-day people in your life that really are there for you all the time. Here are some example questions that we ask about each person in the family's life. For close relatives, so mothers, fathers, grandparents, sisters, we always ask, how often do you see or talk to them? Another good question I always like to ask is, if something cool were to happen to one of your children, who would you call? The most important thing about these questions is to really find out how supportive or stressful the person is. We know the more a parent talks to another family member, it's very likely that they have a pretty supportive relationship, unless the parent tells us otherwise. We definitely don't want to ask, how do you get along with them for family members? Remember, at the beginning, we tell the family that if there's anything that they don't want to say, they don't have to say it. They can keep that personal. Now, imagine if I were to ask something like, how do you get along with them, with a family member? That might be very uncomfortable for a parent. If you don't have the same relationship with relatives, if we all think about, there might be one relative that we don't get along with so well, but we may not want to say this to a stranger. So we want to be really careful with the question, especially around close relatives. As we start plotting this out, we really think of, if the parent is telling us, oh, I speak with them every day, multiple times a day, we know those are very supportive relationships, and those are going to be very thick lines. The medium lines are somewhat supportive. The thin lines are not very supportive relationships. And then there's dotted lines. Those could potentially be a stressful relationship. Now, let me say this, you may have a very supportive relationship and you may have that thick line, but that relationship might also be stressful. And I'm going to give you an example. A parent may say that their parent, their mother, is very supportive because they really help with childcare. The grandparent is there when the parent needs them, but at the same time, that grandparent might be very critical of what the parent is doing. So it's supportive 100%, but there also might be that sense of stress. So we want to capture that. And if the parent is telling us, yeah, you know what? I talk to her a lot. She helps me out or he helps me out. But at the same time, she's very critical about my parenting skills. We want to capture that because that's something that the parent has chosen to share with us. If they don't share it, we just keep the thickest line. We're really always going by what the parent is sharing and how much they want to share. We never want to force parents to share more than they want to share.
Maria,
Yes.
as a child, as a parent of a child with a disability who's receiving special education services, is this something that I could do on my own? Could I create my own EcoMap?
You definitely can. It's nice to do it with another person, so maybe a family friend, but you can do it on your own if you think about those questions. It really, Tammy, is a nice way to plot out and see visually who you have around you, especially as you're thinking about really what supports you might need. And I'm going to give you an example of that. Let's say there's something that you want to do as a family or that you want to do with your child, and you're like, I can't do this on my own, or I need some assistance here. A good thing to do, if you've created your own eco map, you can kind of pull it out and look at it and say, you know what, I never thought of this. My neighbor, we do this together all the time. I wonder if she would be interested, or I wonder if my sister or my mother could help me out with that. It really kind of creates this opportunity to look at like what you already have in place. And then do you need a little extra to make it even better, or do you not? Or do you have it under control? So I love the idea of creating it on your own and really using it to plan and really think about how much extra support you actually do need. So I love that idea, Tammy.
I really think that I could have used this when my kids were much younger in helping me. Like, I feel like we focused a lot on those formal supports and really didn't think about the informal supports when we were looking at those goals that we had and for our child, right? And we were thinking about like, how are we going to get that done? It was all, I'm going to say almost always we looked at those formal supports. We looked at the therapists, we looked at the doctors, right? We were looking at the specialists, and we really weren't focusing on those informal supports. And I see now that if we had focused on those informal supports, we might have had more inclusive opportunities and definitely more assistance to be able to have our children fully participate in everyday learning opportunities. So yeah.
Absolutely, Tammy. And I'm going to give you an example of a family I worked with years ago. We did an eco map because I really love them. They're not required in the state, but when I was a service coordinator, once I found out about them, I could not use them. And I worked with a family whose child came in. It was the EI system. They came in for a speech delay. And when we did the eco map, the parent mentioned a neighbor that was, and it was a very thick supportive line. She said, like, our kids play together all the time. And then when we did the routines-based interview with her, she actually said, when my son is at the neighbor's house, no, he's not talking, but he's much more verbal. He is with the other, that neighbor had, I think, 2 or 3 kids. He's with the other boys. They're running around. He's very verbal. He tries to say things. That was just like a key piece of information. I remember the IFSP team came back to meet. This child was eligible. And as we thought about the supports, one of the strategies was, if we can incorporate the other children when the provider came to see the family, because we knew that this child was much more verbal. That support was already there. And that's where we implemented the strategy. It was really around supporting that play relationship of those kids rather than teaching him speech, which they were doing anyways, but the provider was really supporting that relationship, that kind of like informal play date with a neighbor. So it is such a great way to think about it and think about inclusion really in your community, right? Thinking about what is already out there what you're doing. Maybe there's something that is preventing you from doing that, but maybe that, like thinking about those supports can really add that support to be able to engage in the activities. It always comes down to participation in family, community, and educational activities. I always like to think back to that, that successful participation in family, community, and school life. So let's observe and practice creating Ryan's EcoMap. So I'm going to give you a little bit of history about Ryan. Ryan agreed to that recording. He was in early intervention, had 3 children, who was already getting services. But he agreed to do an EcoMap, and so we can use it for training. He had a son that was in early intervention. So this is really me finding out about really his support system.
Ryan, thank you for meeting with me today. The purpose of today's meeting is to go through your day-to-day activities to figure out what you need and want from early intervention.
Okay.
At the end of the meeting, we'll have a list of priorities that you want to prioritize for your family.
Okay.
So the first step is to go through something called the EcoMap. We want to figure out your supports and resources that you have in your family, so we really know who to call on as early intervention progresses.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to start off by having you list who lives in the house, and I'm going to start with you, Ryan, and who else lives in the house?
So there's myself and my wife, Tiffany. My oldest daughter, Reese.
Mm-hmm.
My middle son, Ryder. And our youngest daughter, Emmy. E-M-M-E. Yep.
And how old is Reese?
Reese is 5.
And how old is Ryder?
Ryder's 2.
And Ryder is in early intervention.
Correct.
And why is he in early intervention?
Speech delay.
Okay.
We noticed he had speech delay around the age of 1.
Okay. Okay. So,
And Emmy's 1.
And Emmy's 1. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to start off asking about your family.
Okay.
Ryan, are your parents still alive?
Yes.
Are they together?
No, they're divorced.
Okay. Let's start off with your mom. What is her name?
Nancy.
And does she live close by?
Yeah. 20 miles. 20
Okay.
minutes.
Okay. And how often do you talk to her?
2-3 times a week.
And what about your dad?
Wayne,
Does he live close by?
same, 20 minutes, yeah.
And how often do you talk to Wayne?
Same, 2-3 times, 4 times a week.
Do Wayne or Nancy ever help you with childcare or taking care of the kids?
Yeah, they both come over, see the kids. Nancy spends probably more time taking care of them, but Wayne definitely spends time.
Okay, what about other family members? Do you have any siblings?
I have 2 siblings. Would you like their names?
Yes, please.
Zach.
And is Zach local or is he?
Zach's 20 minutes as well,
Okay. And how often do you speak to Zach?
2-3 times a week.
Does Zach ever help out with childcare or anything like
He's
that?
more of like my dad. He'll spend time, but not in terms of care.
Okay. Okay. And then you said you have one more sibling.
Kellen, K-E-L-L-Y-N.
And is Kellen local?
Kellen, same, 25 minutes or so.
And how often do you speak with Kellen?
Probably once every couple weeks.
And any other family members?
Not on my side, immediate, no.
Okay.
That would be it. Unless you want to count like grandparents and stuff like that.
Are they involved in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I see them and they're at the house and spending time with the kids.
Okay.
They're obviously elderly now, but they are around the house here and there.
And how often do you speak with them?
Probably if you average it out once a month.
Okay. And then what, any other family members?
Not including my wife's side.
No, I'm going to ask you about
Just
Tiffany's
yeah.
side. In a
So
minute.
no, that would be it.
Okay. And then what about Tiffany? Are her parents still alive?
Yes.
Are they together?
Yes.
And what are their names?
Ron and Debbie.
And how are they local?
Yep. Same. 15 minutes away.
Okay. And how often do you speak with them?
Well, me or my wife, we speak with them same amount, a couple times a week.
Do they help you with childcare?
Yep, they're there. Her mother helps, and her dad is around, just like my dad would be. And they are together, so when they're there together.
What about, does Tiffany have any siblings?
Yeah, she has 3. She has 1 brother and 2 sisters.
And what is Tiffany's brother's name?
Ryan.
And how often do you speak with Ryan, or you or Tiffany?
Once a week.
Okay. And then you said there's
2
more
sisters. Yep.
sisters. What are their names?
Tristan, T-R-Y. Yep. And then Tiara, T-I-A-R-A.
And are Tristan and Tiara both local as well?
They're both about 45 minutes
Okay.
out. Yeah,
Okay. And how often do you or Tiffany speak with them?
weekly. Couple, I would say multiple times a week.
Any
She's
one
on-
more than the other?
Yeah, they FaceTime with Tiara with the kids
Okay.
probably daily.
And Ryan, do you work outside the home?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what do you do?
I'm a high school teacher in LaGrange. High school business teacher.
And do you like your job?
Yes, I love it.
Does it pay the big bucks?
For teaching, it pays really well. I'm very fortunate to be where I'm at, yes.
And what about Tiffany? Does Tiffany work outside the home?
Yes, well, she works full-time, partially from home,
Okay.
but she's in pharmaceutical sales.
Okay. Does she like her job?
Yes, she loves her job. She's a manager.
Does that pay the big bucks?
Yes. She's the breadwinner.
What about friends and neighbors? Do you have like a real good friend, Ryan?
Yeah, we actually are fortunate. We have a really great block, and we have multiple families on the block that our kids are supported by for sure. Would you like specifics?
No, I just
Our neighbors in particular, we have one family that their
Okay.
kids are the same age, and we can count on them to watch our kids, or if we need vice versa. So it works out.
and what are their names?
Dan and Jamie.
What about work friends?
Yeah, I mean, I have one work friend that sees my kids.
Okay,
Would you like a name?
sure.
His name's Greg. We have our daughters are the same age, so we'll do things together in the summers.
And what about Tiffany? Does Tiffany have like a best friend or?
Yeah, she's got a couple friends with kids same age that they will spend time together with the kids. I can give you one in particular. Her name is Annie. They spend a lot of time together with the kids. And her husband, John.
And what do you guys do on Sunday mornings?
Church.
Okay.
Church and breakfast and clean.
Okay.
And control the chaos in the house.
So if something cool were to happen to one of your kids, who would you call?
Probably my mother. And my wife would probably call her parents as well.
Now I'm going to ask you a little bit about the people that are paid to be in your life.
Okay.
You said you're an early interventionist. Who are the people in early intervention that are in your life?
So we have two people. We had a person come to the house first to assess our son.
Okay.
Would you like her name?
Sure.
Her name is Emily. She came and did the initial paperwork.
Okay.
And then I can't remember.
Was she your service coordinator?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. Service coordinator. Thanks.
And how did you like Emily?
She was great. Very friendly. Felt comfortable with her in the house for sure.
What about, and then she was your service coordinator. You said there was one other person.
Yeah, so the woman who actually came and worked with comes and works with Ryder, her name is Stacy.
Stacy.
And she comes on Tuesdays.
Okay. And is she the speech therapist?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. And how do you like Stacy?
She's wonderful. I couldn't ask for anything better.
That's great.
Honestly.
And then what about medical insurance? Do you guys have medical insurance?
Yeah, so we have Aetna through my wife's company. I don't take my works because my wife's is actually a better plan.
Yeah. Okay. And how do you like your insurance company?
It's great.
It's great.
Yep.
Okay.
We have a high deductible, which we use because we usually are pretty good, but it's great. And they have a savings plan.
Oh, great, great. And then what about any pediatrician, doctors?
So we see Dr. Dwyer, Dr. Megan Dwyer. She's in the Orland Park area. We've
Okay.
had all of our kids through her and have no issues whatsoever. She's
So-
been great. Yep. Within 5 minutes and a phone call away.
Great. Any other financial supports that you may be getting?
Financial supports? No, I mean, we do have, since we both work, we do have a full-time nanny that comes to the house.
Okay.
Her name's Angelina, and she's there at 7:30, and she leaves when we need her to leave.
Okay. Oh,
And
that's
she
great.
basically does everything that we need her to do. She's wonderful. We spent a lot of time finding someone that we could trust and fully rely on, and we have somebody, so we're lucky.
Great.
But that's huge in the kid's life for sure, because they're
Yeah.
with her.
Sure.
All the time.
Absolutely. So other than Dr. Dwyer, there's no other medical specialists that.
Not that we would see on a regular basis. I mean, the kids have had their tonsils out and stuff like, or my daughter had her tonsils out, but who
Yeah.
we see normally, no,
Yeah.
we have one pediatrician we go to.
Okay. I'm going to have you take a look at this,
Mhm.
and
Looks like we got a lot of support.
yeah, it does. It does.
It's nice to see it on paper. I've never done it like this, but it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes me feel like I'm giving a lot to my kids.
Okay. Well, we're definitely one of our goals in early intervention is, you have a lot of support. We
Right.
want to preserve that support
Right.
that you have
Yeah.
and not add any unnecessary support in your life.
Yeah. No, I'd say all that's perfect.
All right. So we did in a very short amount of time, we got a lot of information about Ryan. Oh, there we go. Some of the informal supports, we can see that I asked about a lot of people. We really thought about family, friends. We asked about the weekend. If you notice, one of the things that I asked about was, what do you do on Sunday mornings? I wouldn't directly ask the question, do you go to church? Because not everyone goes to church. So a nice kind of way to ask that is to find out what happens on Sunday mornings. It will give you some more information. There is also the big bucks question. People might be like, "Ooh, why would you ask that question?" We really want to know, is the family okay financially? Do they need some support in that area? So we ask that question in a kind of a light way, so it's not too heavy for the family. the family might say, yeah, we do okay. Or they might say, you know what? I love my job, but I wish it paid a little bit more. And you can see even from Ryan's answer, he said, yeah, for teaching, it does, really acknowledging that teaching really doesn't always pay so well, but his job actually did pay him well. And then we went through all the people that are paid to be in his life. We asked about interventionists, and for those people, for the formal supports, it's okay to say, how do you like them? Because it's not a family member. And also we asked about insurance. We asked, and you'll notice, I'm going to show you Ryan's EcoMap, and you'll see for insurance, I put a dotted line next to the insurance. It was a thick line because he said he liked his insurance, but he did say they had a very high deductible. And this can cause some stress for a family. So I put that dotted line there for the insurance company. But he mostly, if you look at this EcoMap, his lines are either kind of thick or medium thick. There's not really that many thin lines, just a couple of them. Doesn't mean it's stress. It just means that those people are not so much involved. Not that they're not caring, but they're really not there a lot because of different circumstances. So with this EcoMap, one of the things I want to highlight, if you have a lot of people around the EcoMap, you want to make sure that you're filling in the lines, how I have the squiggly lines in between, because those thick lines can run together. And sometimes we don't know when one line starts and the other ends. So just to fill them in, it makes them easier on the eye. And then this is something that you can reflect back on. If you'll notice, Ryan looked at it and said, boy, this makes me feel really good. I have lots of people in my life. And it does feel really good when you look at your own EcoMap. So this is something that can be used by the service providers or teachers with the family to learn more. Families can sometimes draw this even for the service providers and say, hey, this is what I already have in my life. I want to preserve this. I want to make sure we find these opportunities in my life I want to support them. So it could be something that could be used by both ways. It could be used by the provider, it could be used by the family to share the provider. I want to end by saying this is a collaborative partnership, right? So equal partners in sharing information. One doesn't have better information than the other. I always end the EcoMap with saying, what do you think of this picture? It's also an opportunity for for the parent to say, oh, you're missing a big thing here, or, oh, we forgot this person. So always going back to look at that. And then also say, well, try not to complicate your life anymore, because early childhood programs, early intervention, when it's bombarding a family, it is stressful. It's very stressful. So we want to make sure we're preserving what's already in place and strengthening that, and giving just the right amount of support that works for the family, really finding that perfect balance. I like to end it with, we can use this EcoMap whenever possible to see if you have people who can help with different goals that you come up with. So as we think about goals in early childhood programs and early intervention, always pulling out that EcoMap and saying, what's already in place? Who do I already have in place that can support me? And then thinking, do they need some support? Do they need some strategies as well? So really thinking about that support in a real systematic way, starting off with what's already in place, what are we already doing, and then building from that, but not building so much that it's taking away that natural support. Tammy, I am going to turn it over to you to talk about some of those resources.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much, Maria. I had a couple ahas that I just want to go back to when I was watching you go through that EcoMap with Ryan. And so before you started that, you had mentioned an experience of yours when you had you're working with a family and the peer in the neighborhood was very involved in this child's life, and this child was talking a lot more when they were around this peer, and so building that peer into that intervention session, right?
Mhm.
And that makes me just think of how many more opportunities that child that was receiving those early intervention services had, because they likely played with this child more, right, than the family saw that therapist.
Oh,
And so that child almost becomes another provider, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
provider. So I just love that. And then I also thought about, when we have children that have disabilities, I hear many folks talk about the friendships that they had before the child was diagnosed tend to change once that diagnosis is received. And I wonder if this EcoMap might help all of the support providers that are in this family's life to help preserve some of those relationships. I think that when I know for me that when we were in early intervention specifically, I got so wrapped up in working, trying to figure out those formal supports, trying to schedule all those appointments, and I think if I had thought about it more, and if I would have had this opportunity, it would have given me maybe some time to reflect on what the resources that I have, if I would have been able to keep some of those relationships going. So just a thought.
Yeah, you're so right, Tammy. And one of the things that I was always big on when I was a service coordinator, and I would always insist on this almost, is having a family level goal on the IFSP. And a family level goal could be just an informational goal. It could be, I want information about this, but it could also be the parents saying, I want to have one time a month to have dinner with my friends outside of the home. I want to be able to find a babysitter that I'm comfortable with so I can go and have this dinner. Or, I want to have time with my husband or my significant other to go on a date. And, to do this, we need some childcare. To me, the most successful are IFSPs. Is when I was a service coordinator, I almost insisted, like, okay, where's the family level goal? Is there something you want to do as a family? Because that's just as important as the child level goals. Again, to make sure we're supporting the entire family.
Right. Wonderful. Wonderful. So we have some additional resources here for you. One is Paula Kluth's Strengths and Strategies worksheet. And it really allows the primary caregivers of a child to list out things that work for them and that child's strengths, so they can share that with those more formal supports, right? So when they go to have the plan written, they can share, what are my child's strengths and what strategies have I used that are successful. You might also find too that you include strategies that aren't successful or that haven't worked with you. Sharing that with the team is very important. And then we have a link to some information specifically about the EcoMaps, which is what Maria shared with us today. Awesome resource. Early Choices has some modules. You can go at your own speed. You can watch all of them at once, or you can watch individual ones. Each of those modules has a video, audio, and then offers some tools for reflection. So you can check those out. Early Intervention has an amazing resource. They have tip sheets for parents and caregivers and providers. And so you can also check that out there at the EI Clearinghouse. There is another resource at the EI Clearinghouse that you might find helpful. It's who was on your EI team, and we know that child and family is in the very middle of that team. You are definitely a part of that team. And then last but not least, there's another resource on the EI Clearinghouse site. and it's entitled Talking with Your Service Providers. So it really gives folks an opportunity to really think about how can I best get my point across? How can I make sure that I'm an active member? How can I contribute to this meeting? Because it's all about you guys. It's all about parents. It's all about the child. Anything else you want to add, Maria?
No, I think those are great resources to start with. And, we want folks to remember it is really all about parents. This team is there to support you in the way you want to be supported, in the way you envision being supported. And it takes some collaboration and some trying out. So I just encourage people to share and share some more and make sure people understand correctly. I loved it when a parent said to me, no, that's really not the way it is. Let me explain it to you a little more, because we were coming to this shared understanding. So that is really my final message, but I just want to thank everyone today.
Thank you so much, Maria. I love this resource. So you can follow Early Choices for all things inclusion on social media. We have a Facebook page, Instagram. We have a YouTube page. We also offer Mindful Mondays. We're doing that once a month live on Facebook. And you can find us at earlychoices.org. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you were able to get some tidbits out of here, and we encourage you to try to use this EcoMap. Thank you.